Hello and welcome to the That's So Craven podcast, your Fulham podcast from Down Under. And we are back again, this time for the 100th time as we record episode 100. We're going to be talking about the Fulham playing Bournemouth, and we're going to be going back through the archives and picking out some of our favourite moments and revisiting a few old segments that we used to run as well. Here to enjoy the day with me, we have Sammy. How are we going, Sam?
I'm feeling very emotional. I'm largely feeling good. We're at a milestone right now. It is astonishing to me that this has been done 100 times. But as always, I'm excited and very happy to be here.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad you're happy. If you're happy, I'm happy.
Good.
And also joining us, we have Dad. How are we going, Dad?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. Thanks for having me, and hi to everyone listening. And I'm not sure I'm emotional, but I'm kind of surprised that we're still here, and I'm happy we're still here.
Yeah, well, it's been a couple of quiet weeks from us. There's a few reasons as to why we won't go into, but it's very good to be back podcasting, and it's good to celebrate a milestone like this as well. It's been, I think it's about 18 months now we've been doing this, coming up for 2 years soon. And yeah, it's been a real journey and really enjoyable one. So very excited for our 100th episode. Very excited to delve into, how Fulham have been going recently. And I guess we're incredibly lucky that Fulham have been doing very well. Let's look at the game on the weekend. And it was a 3-1 victory against Bournemouth. Again, it was a really monumental moment for us personally, because again, we were able to actually sit together as a three and watch the game. Doesn't happen very often, so a special moment. And what a game it was. Sammy, how good to see Fulham performing so well. Peak Fulham.
Yeah, it really does feel like peak Fulham. I mean, obviously, you could argue that we still don't even have our full squad yet, because I refuse to accept a full squad doesn't include Bassi and Iwobi. But if nothing else, just amazing to see Muniz really becoming something that I'm not sure we 100% expected him to be, but Silva's shown so much faith in him as of late. And I mean, this is the catharsis of that, isn't it? Muniz is officially a Premier League striker. I'm not 100% convinced if he's a starting striker, but I mean, for the time being, I mean, look at our boy go. I'm so happy for him. I genuinely am. He's such a lovely addition to the squad, and I just genuinely just want the best from him. It was just really wholesome. He's just really wholesome and really nice. And yeah, I really don't have too many notes. It was just a thoroughly enjoyable game of football to watch.
I agree. It was a wonderful time to sit down and watch together. And I mean, Dad, this game was all about Rodrigo Muniz. I know Decordova-Reid scored, Willian pulled the strings, Tom Cairney looked incredible, but really this was Rodrigo Muniz's day.
It certainly was, and there can't be a single fan. Well, I'm sure someone would prove me wrong, but there can't be a decent fan out there that isn't happy for the guy. It's been a pretty difficult couple of years for him, really, and I don't need to summarize it and go over it. It's well documented. But isn't it interesting what a rocket up your backside actually does? And it's a weird winding tale, isn't it, as to sort of how we've got here. But fair play to the guy. He's taken his opportunity. He's seen someone come around the corner that could be pretty handy, and I don't know that it's entirely based on effort, but geez, his work rate must be contributing to his success, because he is harrying, he is working so hard in defence, and in many different phases of play, and he's being opportunistic, and he's you can see how happy everyone is for him, and it's come at a very good time. We were kind of thinking, okay, so Jimenez has now suddenly found a purple patch, starting to score goals, and then he drops off with an injury. Really unlucky. We've had it's it's been difficult, really, really difficult. So for the least likely man, post Mitro to actually be successful, not according to Marco Silva, obviously he's always backed and believed in him, but honestly, out in there in fan land, the least likely man has prevailed, certainly for the moment. And I don't think you can get the shirt off him. And how can you drop him?
Well, I mean, in a way, I don't think you should be taking the shirt off him. I know I think everyone in the Fulham community has slated Rodrigo Muniz at some point, and I think we all have to be men here and kind of eat our words and say,
Sure.
look, we were kind of wrong. He's raw. Let's not pretend that he's a finished product at all, because he's definitely not. But I'm starting to see some of the potential. I'm starting to understand why Marco Silva backs him so much, and maybe it's a case of some bad luck across the course of his sort of fledgling career so far. If you look at the fact that he went over to Middlesbrough, it looked like a really good loan deal in the first place, but it just didn't pan out the way I think anyone had kind of expected it to. Maybe he's just had a bit of bad luck so far. But I mean, a lot of the chat on social media afterwards was praising him, and one of the best comments I think I saw was, "This is the closest performance we've had to a Mitro performance in a long time." And that, I think, was what was most pleasing for me, was because this team really hums with Mitro up top. We saw it last year. There were moments when we kind of looked unbeatable, and we looked like we could beat anyone on our day. And Muniz was starting to show some of those qualities that I think Mitro showed. He was causing a lot of strife to the Bournemouth defence. He was very physical. His layoffs were very good. His hold-up play was very good. And his finishing was instinctive. And I think that's what you're looking for in a striker. And I'm not saying that we can cancel the look for a proper number 9 now and Muniz is the answer, but it's definitely proving that he is good enough to be a bench player at least, and potentially has even more than that.
Yeah, I like tailing off on that point. I'm not 100% sure if I see Mitrovic in him. I see a actually really, really good quality striker there, but I'm not 100% sure if I see that comparison that much outside of just really good what's the word? Attacking vision, which Mitrovic had in abundance. I just want to quickly just shout out Marco Silva, because Marco Silva is now 4 for 4, I guess, with all the strikers that he's actually had at Fulham. And he, at some point or another, he's actually made them all work, which is actually really impressive when you think about it. I mean, I still don't think we've ever really got his ideal striker at the ideal age and the ideal point of their career. But the fact that he has made, at one point or another, Mitrovic, Jimenez, Vinicius, and now Muniz work, it's just a real testament to the guy. He's so good. He just knows how to work with the players that he chooses, and yeah, I just don't want that to be missed at any point. And like, obviously, give Muniz his flowers or anything, but I don't want the conversation that Marco Silva hasn't done such a good job with the cards that he's been given to be lost in the shuffle.
Are you sure that you're not taking that too literally? I don't know that people see Muniz as a Mitro lookalike. I think it's more his presence. It's the fact that when he plays the way he has over the last couple of weeks, to be fair, he actually looks dangerous. We look threatening up front. We look like you put the ball in his area, he's going to work really hard for it. If he hasn't got a clear run, he's not a pushover. Yeah, he's not. I mean, he's not that quick. And Mitro is, he's more experienced and possibly more skillful. I'm not even sure of that, actually.
I mean,
think Mitro.
for me, it was the physicality of Mitro that was one of his greatest assets, the ability to have his back to goal, hold up the ball, and make really good decisions from there. And I think that's what we've seen from Muniz a couple of times this season. Not all the time, but he's actually created quite a lot of goals and hasn't got the assists for it, but he's the origin of a lot of goals this season where he's had some really good hold-up play, received the ball, played the right pass, and played it at the right time as well. And I think that's what I'm seeing with Mitro. Mitro scored a lot of goals for us, obviously, but it was the off-the-ball stuff that he did as well, actually just bullying defenses. And Muniz, I love the energy that he puts into it. Look, he's young, he's raw. He's less raw than someone like AK-47 back in the day, but he's definitely got some potential there. And I'm so stoked to see him do well. It's really good to see him do well, and it's great to see how everyone around him is really enjoying this little moment that Muniz is having, and you can see how much Muniz is enjoying it as well. You see the tears after that first Premier League goal, and just the smile on his face, but everyone else's faces as well when he's scoring and putting the ball in the back of the net. It's just great to see.
Well, as Steve, following on the live stream, has said, he's clearly more relaxed, and there's no surprise. It's a huge amount of pressure for him to actually establish himself as that guy. He knows he hasn't been delivering. He's the junior. He's got his manager backing him, but if you're not doing it and scoring goals, doesn't matter how much your manager's backing you. It's an enormous amount of pressure. So it's just fantastic. He's got that out the way. Obviously, he's not suddenly. He might have some cult status, but he's not a established player yet. But it's the shoots are more than there, and I think it just takes enormous pressure off the guy. And it's not surprising to see him flourishing and actually showing us a bit of what he's got. I just love how enormously hard he's working as well, because that's a pain in the ass when you've got a striker who's not only physical, but he's running and he's pressing and he's working hard and he's defending. It's so difficult to deal with, and it just gives the team so much.
On that point, we look at the first goal, and let's sort of dive straight into it. And the first goal comes about because of Muniz's hard running here. There is a slice of luck, but Muniz actually runs into the channels, down the wing, picks up the ball. And again, he's not the fastest, but he's running as hard as he can and puts in the effort to get there first, gets down the wing, puts a ball into the box. And at the end of the day, that's all you ask for from a striker. You're not expecting to pin it on someone's head, but gets it into the danger area. Bournemouth player slips over, I think it was Cook, and falls straight to the feet of Decordova-Reid, who's, it's a smart finish. He's sort of not expecting it at all. But again, it's down to Muniz's hard work here to actually get the ball into the box in the first place. So hats off to him, and a good finish and a great way to start the game.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Go on, Sammy. You're looking not sure.
No, it's not that I'm not sure. It's just kind of like in my brain, I was like, do I bring up how crap Bobby Decordova-Reid was for? Like, he's he's so funny, isn't it? Because Bobby can always play a pretty lackluster game, and yet somehow he's just able to find goals. So I can't slack him off too much, because he just always seems to be able to do it. But I mean, he really didn't do that much aside from his goal.
Say what you like, but if I'm Marco Silva in this Fulham, without another smart 200 million spent over the next few years, I'm keeping Bobby Decordova-Reid.
Absolutely.
He is a handy player. The number of times, forget the fill-ins at right back, but the number of times he does more than fill in for us. He's a very capable squad player. He's I don't think we can really be too hard on the guy just because he's had a little bit of lean form over the last few weeks, and he's been quiet and been disappointing in patches. But I don't think you can take too much away from the guy.
No, it's kind of like hence the face crunch. I'm like, there's so much I love about Bobby, and there's so much that like if I did slag him off, it's actually largely unjustified because he's got us. He will always get us goals, but for somebody who is able to get us goals during the game, he does just have a tendency to feel a bit like dead weight. But I still love him, and I still desperately want to keep him, and there's no reason to like lose him, but. Yeah, I'm just not a huge fan of Bobby starting at the moment.
Look, we've covered it over the last couple of podcasts, I think, and he's, for me personally, Bobby's not a starter. He's a great squad player to have coming off the bench and making a difference in the game. And the joy of someone like Bobby is he can play in so many different positions. You could put him up front, you could put him on either wing, you could put him in central midfield, you can play him at right back. We've seen him play all over the park, and I think the big thing here is he's that Swiss Army knife that you kind of want to have. The problem is he's just not got the quality of a first team starter, and I know he's our top goal scorer this league this season. But
no, I'll tell you why I'm laughing, because I'm just thinking ahead to when the blue card sin bin rule comes in. Bobby's going to go, I'll do it in goal. Give me the gloves. I'll do it.
I'd love to see that. Only issue is I think he's about a foot too short to play in goal.
I'd let him do it. I'd totally let him do it.
But yeah, look, I think he is always in the right place at the right time, and he's a good person to have around the squad. But I agree. Look, if we have fit wingers, Harry Wilson is in ahead of him 99 times out of 100, if not 100 times out of 100. But he has his place in our squad, but it is as a squad player for me personally. But again, great to see him get on the score sheet. And the fact is, even though he's not putting in the best performances recently, he's still scoring goals and contributing to everything. And if we look at the second goal, comes through a piece of Willian brilliance. We were all expecting him to take a shot at that point. Instead, he dinks it to the back post where Bobby has just sort of drifted in behind the final defender. And quite rightly, Bobby does the perfect thing here, heads the ball down into the danger area. And Muniz, it's exactly what you want from a poacher-style striker. And what we've seen from Mitro over the last 4 or 5 years is someone who gets their foot to the ball first, gets in a good position in front of a defender and a keeper, puts the ball in the back of the net. And it was 2-0 after 36 minutes. And look, personally, I felt like it could have been a lot more from there. Dad and Sam, your thoughts sort of coming into halftime, 2-0 up, but we saw what happened last week. Were there nerves around this, or did it feel a little bit different to Burnley, and maybe we'd learnt our lesson?
Well, I can't say that I was without anxiety, but I thought it was a much better first half performance than the Burnley game. And like you, I thought we had more goals in us. I wanted to give Muniz his moment here and not deflect and talk about other things. So I'm glad we've done that. But I have to say the man on the day for me is Willian. He was incredible. Yes, we all know I love Willian, but I'm unashamed about it. He was incredible. And he was he was part of everything, wasn't he? Part of every goal at least. But so much more. And he was having fun. He down the left, we were absolutely killing them, absolutely tearing it up. It was fun to watch.
It's quite a treat, actually. What I was going to say, and it's so funny that you've even done this for me and perfectly segued, is I was going to say it's quite a treat to watch a Fulham game and just listen to Elton bang on about how much he loves Willian for a full 90 minutes in real time. It's like the man, like you love that man. It's completely justified and it's all valid, but like the amount of praise that you will give that young Brazilian over a full 90 minutes. It's quite something to behold. Like it's very genuine. You do not just save it for here. But he's phenomenal. He is an aging top drawer bottle of wine. He had an enormous amount of pace when he was younger, but he is still every bit as classy as he always was. He's gold standard to me. He's
And
just a wonderful,
in the pantheon of all great things that Marco Silva has brought and delivered and conjured, that bringing on getting Willian out of retirement and at Fulham for nothing
yeah.
has to be right up there, surely.
Oh yeah, totally. It's a
He's
great
the corner-
example of, on paper, it just doesn't necessarily seem like the best idea or the best piece of business, but in practice, it is wonderful. It is scintillating. I love Willian.
and I reckon you can't underestimate what Willian is the backbone of in the club. I think those Brazilians all rise to the occasion, playing, training, just being around him because they have so much love and
does.
Yeah, I think.
but
I mean,
you see an
particularly the
interview.
Brazilians.
Yeah,
No,
maybe.
I actually disagree with that. I'd see an interview afterwards with Tom Kearney, and he said it's incredible playing with someone like Willian because he's just always in the right spot. He does things. He's on everyone's wavelength, and that's the benefit. And I saw someone again, can't remember who it was on social media, but saying Fulham have had a Champions League winger playing for the last 2 seasons for them. He might be old, but he's that quality and at that level still. And Fulham have been incredibly lucky to have him. I've quite enjoyed Daddy saying that Willian is out there looking like he's enjoying his football, but you wouldn't tell it on his face because he always looks absolutely knackered from about the 4th minute onwards. But you're right, he is enjoying his football, and from that we get these amazing performances, and we're just lucky to see a player like that at the Cottage. He's up there with your Berbatovs, your Dembélés, these guys who, it may not be the peak of their careers, but their quality is just next level, and it shows when they're out on the pitch.
Honestly, sorry, just the bow on that point. If we can get as many old guard players as physically possible, like the aging players that are seen as past their prime, I don't care. I just want to see it. Like, give me nostalgia ball. I mean, okay, look, Inter Miami's doing it, so they're doing the Barcelona encore, huh?
They're absolutely terrible. They're like bottom of the MLS, which is a terrible league.
I just want to see it.
And also, it completely goes against your point where you make about Brighton constantly bringing through youth players, which is what we should be doing.
I'm not saying what we should do. I'm saying what I want. There's a difference.
Half-time, 2-0 up, but a goal 5 minutes after half-time. A really good finish for a centre-back. Senesi puts the ball in the back of the net. We didn't deal with corners very well, and geez, Bournemouth had a lot of them on the day. I have to say there was a little bit of flapping from Leno a few times and a few nervous moments. And look, we were made to pay for it. Senesi takes the ball down. It looks like a prime Ronaldo or a prime Messi goal, where he takes the ball down with one touch and on the swivel hits it on the half volley into the back of the net. Not going to stop that. The great thing about it, though, what we've seen across the whole season is Fulham capitulate when something like that happens. Instead, we went the complete other direction, scored just 2 minutes later, Rodrigo Muniz with his second goal, and again, it's magic from Willian. And Willian obviously gets the assist here, and it's a great ball into the box, but I have to put a lot of praise on Muniz's head here. He drifts so perfectly to the back post, and maybe it is this Brazilian connection we're talking about. He just seemed to know where Willian wanted to put the ball. Willian has the ability to put the ball wherever he wants, and Muniz is in the exact right place, puts it in back post. It's still quite a difficult finish, sort of on the volley, to actually put that into the back of the net comfortably and calmly. Doesn't try and hit it too hard. Top corner. And I think at that point, 3-1, it seemed like game over. Dad and Sam, just thoughts on that goal? Because for me, that was probably my favourite of the day.
Well, I think it says a lot about him taking it on the volley. A year ago, maybe a matter of weeks ago, he may well have tried to control that. Never should be, but he may well have done that just to try and
header or something silly like that.
Oh, I don't know about that, but I'm just saying he may have taken a lower risk option, and he executes it perfectly. Just a great goal, and it's one of those goals you actually would want to be in the ground for, because to see that movement, I mean, the camera angles weren't bad for us, but to see that kind of movement live is really, really great to watch. And I think the small box is not really the perfect place to watch those sort of things.
Hmm.
But once again, um, what was so good about that was that we actually snuff out Bournemouth's attempt to get back in the game so quickly. And you're right, Jack, and both in the first and second half, I think there were many opportunities for us to score many more. But let's not be greedy. 3 is pretty good for a Saturday afternoon at Craven Cottage. Doesn't happen that often, and I'm taking it. But it just, whereas in the very, very recent past, we haven't been able to deal with teams coming back at us. It was very, very good to get that goal and actually sort of chop them out of the game and just show them that we hadn't gone to sleep.
Mm.
So yeah, very, very pleasing, really good.
I always like seeing players at their absolute most confident because you don't necessarily see it all the time, and it's genuinely quite I say it every week at the moment now, but I still think that every single Premier League player is a marvel athlete because in order to get to that level, you have to be astonishingly talented. But there's things that just happens. There's injuries. There's not necessarily being with the right manager, not necessarily being in the right team. So some players just don't necessarily get the opportunity to show who they could absolutely be. So I love seeing Muniz just show us what he's truly capable of. Just really by being confident. I think has the potential to be a really, really intelligent player. He's clearly skillful, but we're seeing it now. He's just got such a beautiful understanding of just placement, and he reads the game really, really nicely. I think him and Willian, as we've previously said, could really. I mean, Willian's the best person for him to be with right now, and to basically nurture him as well as Marco Silva. But it's just exciting, isn't it? It's just exciting. Yeah, can't really wait for the next game.
It's such a strange thing, confidence, because what it really is it's all about what you've got to lose and being brave. And there's I'd say that, yep, football, like any other game at the highest level, it's very, very, very difficult. But I always marvel at batsmen in cricket. It's really the hardest thing to do. You get one shot, and if you get one good ball, that's the end of your afternoon, maybe the end of your 5 days or your series. Whereas 90 minutes, should you last that long in a game, you get a few opportunities, and yet it's so difficult to really play with the freedom that your manager tries to motivate you to do, because that how many opportunities you're going to get, and if you just can't do it, it could be the end of your career. It's fine lines.
You see it as well in really audacious players like Cole Palmer that come to mind that have just got an exceeding amount of confidence, and so that they never struggle with that. They're just basically waiting for opportunities. But then when it happens with players like Muniz, where you just invest in someone and then they finally actually feel comfortable. I don't want to say in their skin, but in their team, and it's so lovely to watch. I mean, it's one of the best parts of the game, in my opinion. Just investing in players and just watching them grow. No, it's a lovely bit of narrative.
Yeah, well, look, I think it's always a tough one when you're buying young players, especially like someone like Muniz, where you do have to cross your fingers. Especially someone, he'd only played 19 professional games of football before he joined Fulham. Since then, he's only played 50-odd games. So his career is still very fresh and very new. There's a long way to go for him. And, I think if you stick with someone and show a bit of faith in them, it does eventually pay off. Not always, because sometimes they don't have that raw ability. And I think Muniz is showing that he does have some skills to be able to take it to the next level. And I'm looking forward to seeing his development over the next few years. I genuinely think we're going to sign a new striker in the summer, and Muniz will probably go out on a very good loan deal next year. I don't know who that's to. Maybe a lower league La Liga side, or to the Championship, to a team who's going to do him better, maybe. But I think there's still a long way to go for Muniz, but he's showing some signs now. Let's keep moving, because we've got a lot to get through in our 100th episode. We'll have a quick look at these stats from the weekend. Fulham with 49% possession to Bournemouth's 51. Fulham 7 shots on goal. Bournemouth 25 shots on goal. Fulham with 6 shots on target. Bournemouth only 4 shots on target. Similar amount of passes. Fulham with 453. Bournemouth with 448. Fulham with the 1 corner. Bournemouth with 13 corners and 11 fouls apiece. I thought the referee actually had a pretty good game, even though I saw a few Bournemouth fans whinging about it. I thought he actually did pretty well. I do think that shot stat is a little lopsided because of the number of corners. I think with pretty much every corner, they kind of had 1 or 2 shots on goal. They were blocked. They didn't even get to the keeper. I don't think Leno had to make more than a handful of saves, really, if that. And there were a lot of shots from distance. And, as it shows, 4 shots on target from 25 shots on goal is a pretty poor return. Let's look forward to the upcoming game this weekend. We're playing against Aston Villa. It's another home game, and another game with a 3 p.m. kickoff at Craven Cottage. It's against a high-flying Villa. If I have a look at the table now and see where everyone sits, see Villa are currently sitting 5th. They did lose to Man United the other night, but this is a good Villa team who are flying high, and there's been some outside chat about them challenging for the title. I think that's probably dropped off now, but they're definitely challenging for those Champion League spots. And it's a very different Villa side from the one we played last year. But we saw earlier this season players like John McGinn really getting under the skin of Fulham players. Dad, I'll throw to you first. What do you think the key to getting any kind of points out of this Villa game are for this Fulham team?
Well, for starters, Polinia not being drawn to the tactics of John McGinn, drawn in and he was a nuisance last time, and he actually had an incredibly effective game, which frustrated and annoyed me. But even when we played them last time, I felt like we felt like we were in that game and could get something out of it, and then it all kind of went pretty wrong. Look, it's exciting with the Iwobi and Bassi back. They've had a pretty busy 4 or 5 or 6 weeks, however long they've been away. And I hope they can slot back in pretty quickly, because it's a pretty big game for them to return to. But if we can play like we have done, in the last couple of weeks, and have these guys back, my only regret about this fixture is that Tosin isn't available. Yes, you heard it from me. That because I feel like Tosin at the moment is our best centre back on the right. Diop's not awful, but he looks a bit vulnerable from time to time for me. And I think we could really do with him. My understanding he's still injured, so I don't suppose we'll see him. But and we may well not even see Bassi and Iwobi starting on this game on Saturday. But really, this is a pretty good squad, barring injuries, when everyone's back on board. So I'm up for the game for sure. I really, on our day, we can take it to anyone. Look at Arsenal, look at Liverpool. We've proven that, and Tottenham.
Yeah, look, I don't think we'll win. I genuinely just think Aston Villa are just kind of the better team, and I think with their play style, they'll probably nut us out. The only thing I wanted to see is I still want to see Muniz be really competitive and basically be in the game. If Muniz gets a goal, I'll be super stoked. And I would I just want to see Bassi and Iwobi back. They've had such a good AFCON. They've made us so genuinely proud of them. Even if it's just like a run out in the park just to clap them. I just want that. Yeah. I can't see it going amazing for us, but you know what? That's okay. That's okay. You can't win them all. You know, that's the way I feel about it.
You know, Jack, before you jump in, one thing I reckon is worth getting your opinions on. When we came out of the championship, even though we had a really good season, one thing that did happen in our first season back in the Premier League is it all kind of went to shit whenever we got pressed very hard, and we were found out at times by the better sides or sides who actually just had worked us out somewhat. I think we've actually improved that element of our game. Not entirely, because I think they're probably man for man still some potential weak links at the back. But I actually think when teams in this season have pressed us hard, I think we're less vulnerable and we can break those presses. What do you guys think about that?
No, I think that's totally true. I mean, the Arsenal game comes to mind. They were pressing us really, really hard, but I think we completely held our own.
That's kind of what they do, right?
Yeah. I'd be interested to see what Jack's takes are.
Yeah. I think it all depends on who we put out on the park. I think there are certain players in the team who play through the press quite well, and others not so much. I've really liked the way Bassi handles a press. I've really liked the way Diop handles a press as well. And they'd probably be my preference for the two who start. Tosin, I think, has qualities that I like, but they might not match up perfectly for this game. And I think even Tim Ream might be someone who I'd consider for this game. I mean, look at the way he shut Solanke out completely. Against Bournemouth.
Had a really good game.
He had a really good game, made a couple of really good interceptions where he stepped up at the right time. I'm actually fairly comfortable with any of our defenders starting this game. I think I'd like to see Bassi come back in because he was probably Nigeria's standout through the tournament. Mm-hmm. I think on Who Scored, who do sort of official match ratings, he was Nigeria's highest rated player through the tournament. So definitely someone I'd like to see come straight back in off the back of some good form. I wouldn't be surprised if Silva does rest him coming off the back of AFCON. I think they're in Lagos today meeting the president. So it's not like they're back at Motspur Park at the moment training and getting used to things. They're still in African time, and although it's probably the same, maybe 1 hour London difference in the time zone. But either way, you've got quite a long flight ahead of you, and it's been a bit of a draining experience over the last month and a half or however long it's been for both of those players. So wouldn't be surprised if we see them both in the squad, but maybe not in the starting lineup. I did see that Tosin, he wasn't available for last weekend against Bournemouth due to a knock in the game before that. So he wasn't quite ready for Bournemouth. There is a potential for him to come back for this Villa game. So I expect he'll be in and around the squad as well, which will probably see Defugeroles drop off the bench, which is disappointing in a way, but also it's good to see that we're getting a bit of depth back to our bench again by having players like Bassi, Iwobi and Tosin all dropping back onto the bench again. Look, I'm actually cautiously optimistic for this game. I think looking at the fact that someone like Solanke is one of the most informed strikers in the Premier League and didn't get a sniff all game. Looking at the way we've played against Arsenal, against Liverpool this season, and all of the big six teams, and we've put in really good performances. We're not always on our day, but if we are on our day and we play well, we're at the Cottage in front of a home crowd and put some pressure on Villa and start the game right, I actually think there's potentially something in it for us. I'm definitely not writing this one off as a loss. I'm not saying we're going to walk out there and
Yeah,
walk
definitely
over
not.
them and win easily, but I mean, we'll get to a much requested segment coming up, which is Jack's top tips.
You.
And we'll see my top tip for the game, but yeah, I'll save it for then. But I think there's definitely something in this one, and I don't think we should write it off quite yet. Look, guys, let's keep powering through, and as I've mentioned a few times, it is our 100th episode. So, just firstly, a massive thank you to everyone who's liked and subscribed and listened over the last couple of years. We do really appreciate all the support, and it's great to reach 100 episodes. What we're going to do for the rest of the podcast is, focus on looking back in the last sort of couple of years and enjoying it a little bit, and talking about some of the things that we enjoy talking about on the podcast. So bringing back some old segments, and what I'd like to do first is something that we've put a lot of focus on recently, which is Fulham women's team. Just to do a quick preview of their game this weekend. It's a cup game for the Fulham women. Their game against Enfield in the league was unfortunately postponed on the weekend, which is a bit of a shame. This weekend, they're going to be playing Actonians in the Capital Women's Cup. This is the tournament where we beat Arsenal in the last round. So it's been, I think, 3 months since that game, and we're finally getting to the next round of the competition. We played Actonians previously this season. I think we might have played them in an early round of the FA Cup and beat them quite convincingly. So we're hoping for another good performance here. Dad and Sam, obviously the focus is on the league. Do you think cup wins are still important? I mean, we saw with the men the effects that a semi-final run in the Carabao Cup and a decent run in the FA Cup has on the squad. Do you think Fulham will be putting a lot of focus on this game, or do you think it's maybe a unwanted distraction going into the sort of pointy end of the season?
I don't necessarily think it's an unwanted distraction, but I truly think the focus is the league. I think it would be silly for us not to focus on the league, and I think that is the agenda, and that is really what the girls deserve. So I think obviously, like, we'll front up and we'll do what we do. These girls are killers, and I love them for it. But yeah, I think the focus is the league. It's so close we can taste it. So, and I think yeah, I think that's where the brain really is right now. Could be wrong though.
Well, is it fair to say that if you're playing Premier League and maybe Champions League and a couple of cup competitions, if there's an opportunity for silverware, you're going to go for the ride. But if you're in the laser waffle and you bookended with such a difficult process to get out, you'd be brave not to be laser focused on the laser waffle top position. So no one's ever going to avoid taking those cups seriously, but they've got a target that they're all surely heading for. So yeah, I'm not really sure what I'm saying, but
Do you know what? Just because you don't know what you're saying, Jack didn't ask this question, but it's been such a joy covering the women. I've genuinely loved every bit of the content that we've actually done about it. If nothing else, just seeing the girls get be so genuinely appreciative of what we do, and I cannot stress it enough. Support these girls because they truly deserve it. They are such incredible athletes that are working part-time jobs. Some of them are at university and they just want to play football, and they're good at it as well. They deserve everything that they get, and covering them has been an absolute joy because of that.
Well, make that full-time jobs and playing
I was going to
football.
say, pretty sure it's full time, but yeah. One thing to consider with this game on the weekend, Fulham have been slightly disrupted in the last few weeks by this game being cancelled and the game postponed rather than cancelled, and the game before where we played Dulwich Hamlet, that was another League Cup game, so a little bit of rotation there. We haven't played a league game since the 28th of January, so this is possibly a chance to actually get a few minutes into legs and put some time in on the pitch and in game situations for that run in for the league. So I actually think it's probably more important than sometimes a cup run would be, purely because of the disruption of last week's postponed game. I saw obviously the whole team managed to get down to Motspur Park, I think it was, and have a team workout session and play a little bit out on the pitch as well, and still keep themselves warm. But you don't want to have those extended periods where you're not playing games, because it is all about momentum and keeping the ball rolling constantly. So I think this game's actually more important than maybe it would have been if the game last weekend hadn't been postponed. If we have a quick look at the Laser Waffle, we can see Dartford on the weekend had a good result, got a win, put themselves back on top of the league. They have a game in hand over Fulham and a 1-point advantage at this stage. We do still play Dartford and Dulwich Hamlet, who sit 2 points behind us with a game in hand. So look, the games against those two teams are going to be incredibly important come the end of the season. We've had some really good fights with them throughout the year, and I think it's just a really exciting run-in for the rest of the year, and I'm really looking forward to covering the whole thing, because I think it's going to be an interesting one. And I really back our girls to keep the pressure on and keep pushing hard right through to the end of the season. And hopefully we do finally take out that single promotion spot. Jumping away now, we're going to talk about the Fantasy League. We haven't touched on it in a little while, but now is the time, seeing it's our 100th episode. Currently on top of the league, we have Fantasy Emu. It's Troy Veery sitting on top with 1,481 points. A spattering of people who we've seen up the top for basically the whole season so far. But good stuff too. Troy currently sitting on top and leading the way, especially after a very good game week last week. Fortunately, we've seen Wesley Boxall and his team name Mitrovision, which I still can't get my head around, drop away from that top spot that he held down for most of the season so far. But he's climbing back up the league again. So we'll keep an eye on that as we get towards the end of the season.
I don't think I remember what my name was in the thing.
That probably,
yeah.
That you're probably giving it away, Sam. That you haven't edited it for a while or made any changes.
I forget that it exists, but
I can't remember the URL of the page where one might go.
I'll tell you now, for two people who are not playing, Sam, you are doing atrociously. You're sitting in 49th. Your team name Thick Craven City.
Oh, that sounds right. That sounds about right. Yeah, cool.
And Dad, you're not doing much better. You are 53rd out of 56, with just over 1,000 points. Craven Squadcast. The joy of it, and we've got someone below you on the live stream, and Steve Reynolds, who is 54th at the moment.
Steve.
What's up,
4 points ahead of him.
Steven.
And even more unfortunately, last place currently, Emma Reynolds, who is sitting on 845 points, a full 1,000 points behind our current leader.
Please tell me you don't actually play.
Of course I do. Not very well.
No, Steve and Emma. I'm talking about Steve and Emma.
Oh, no, I really hope they don't, because that's bad if they do. Moving on, Dad, I'm going to hand to you on this one. I set you a task of pulling out mainly your favorite tweeters, X's, whatever you want to call them. And look, we're looking at the people who you and I guess we as a group enjoy seeing in the Fulham community and seeing, the content that they put out. And I'll just pull it up on our live stream here. We've put together a bit of a list of the top, how many is that? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 20, top 20 tweeters, as per, what we've seen over the last couple of years and what we really enjoy looking at in our Twitter feeds. Dad, why don't you just walk us through, some of the highlights here, and maybe I'll throw to yourself and Sam and myself, and maybe pick our top 3 out of this group.
Yeah, well, what I love to do is actually just talk a little bit about why they make the list, and I
We'll be
guess
here all night if we
pay
do
some.
that.
Well, let's be here all night, and let's sort of pay some homage and really give some thanks to people who provide so much entertainment, really, and so much knowledge, and so much news content. It's really quite an amazing resource, I suppose, and not that every club doesn't have it, but I think that there are some really key people who drive an enormous amount of the good quality stuff. Excuse me, that we all enjoy. Um, I've kind of broken, or not broken. I've categorized these different content providers into 5 different categories. And
Have you
my
now?
first, yes, I have. My first
Yeah.
category is what I call the kind of spine and backbone of the community, probably characterized by the amount of content they put out and also the quality. But this is sort of the super highway of content, if you like. And I want to shout out Peter Rutzler, who obviously I know Peter does this as a job, but he provides an enormous amount of commentary, and most of it, well, not all of it, at a very very professional level. And I know that a lot of Peter's commentary is actually almost ball by ball, almost like Crick Info ball by ball sort of updates. But for days when matches are not televised and people can't make them in England, I'm sure that's very valuable. Obviously, we benefit from always being able to see games on TV. But so yeah, just a big shout out to him. And then we've got Fulham Fan Zone, Fulham Fan News, who I don't mean to homogenize and group together, but I sort of see them as fairly similar and pumping out an enormous amount of content. And it's a huge job doing that. So I thank those guys. White Noise, obviously, the god of all aggregators of Fulham information. You know, the reposter of all reposters. And I don't know if he's got some software that's doing that, or if he's actually doesn't sleep much, but I can't quite believe what he gathers and pumps out. But I must say, a lot of what he does is reposting. But what I really enjoy is when he puts a little rye crack in there from time to time. It's very, very, very good quality. I particularly love the Tony Khan stuff recently. That was actually very amusing to me. I also want to shout out Dan Crawford and the Hammy End for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think he's a good sort. Dan, he's a man of his convictions and beliefs. He knows a lot about the game. He knows a lot about the club. He's involved in a lot of things, not only just the Green Pole and the Hammy End. You know, he's part of the Fulham Supporters Trust. He follows the women's. And he's covering an awful lot, and I personally enjoy his content, and I love what he's doing. So thanks for that. And then at the end of my sort of backbone of the Fulham community, I think it would be remiss not to shout out Sammy James for what he does. He's obviously running an important podcast. He started that important podcast. But what I'm going to give him most props for here is actually being quite outspoken for the fans in recent weeks and months in terms of affordable Fulham. And I respect to him for, I wouldn't say not caring, but not being afraid to speak his mind and actually promote the right things being done. Do you guys want to say anything, or should I just keep going on my rant?
Yeah, I was about to say you've been fully indulged. Look, I don't.
I'm not even partway finished.
I know you're not. I know you're not. There's so many names on this list.
Just because I know you're just going to randomly, completely derail me, I'm actually going to cut you off, and then I'm going to let you speak at the end. Okay?
Cool. No, I'm glad you can see that coming.
So my next category is
Well, am I
great.
allowed to say something?
No.
Oh, you can
Anyway,
talk,
go
you can
on.
talk at
Yeah.
the end, Jack.
Yeah.
My next category is only two I'm going to give this category to. I'm sure there are more, and I'm probably going to be reminded of who I've missed, but this is for Fulham analysis. I'm going to shout out Jack Collins, obviously a pro journalist, and Jack's got a lot of very, very good insights, and I think no one goes wrong in listening to what Jack has to say, and it's normally spot on. But the one that I really love, and I'm not alone, is the College Tactico. I'm amazed at this guy's analysis, and if he's not working in the back room with some of the Fulham team, I'm not sure why they're not tapping into some of the stuff this guy comes up with. He's really, really good. His content, his graphics are great, and he puts an enormous amount of work in, and it's a joy. It's a joy to follow. Then I'm going to go for witty, insightful, sarcastic, ironic.
Right. How many categories are there? Because this is probably going to
it's
go
just
for about
9.
40 fucking minutes.
Let me find that mute
Yeah.
button.
Yeah.
Mute.
My witty, insightful, sarcastic, ironic category. I'm going to go for Jack and Loz, who obviously are very niche players in all of this and write beautifully, spend a lot of time covering every game, following home and away very passionately, and they're great writers and often come up with interesting and very beautifully worded takes on games. Highly enjoyable. I'm going to shout out IBS. I think he's IBS. He's not a big player in the community by any means, but he's actually got some pretty smart things to say from time to time. I love his political commentary, not so far from the front line, and I think he's a good listen or good read anyway. And then for witty and insightful, I'm going to shout out John Ormonroyd. I think that's the correct pronunciation. Who's some of you might know was the author of that great Tom Caney song.
And interesting fact, came up with the drum part for Vindaloo.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Apart from all of that, John has moved to the Nashville of all Fulham songs, which is Australia, clearly. And he's moved to Brisbane. Not sure why. I'd love to know the inside story behind all that, but he's moved there with his partner, Rachel. And John is a very funny guy on Twitter. The one thing that really made me smile very recently, he had this really great thing that he reposted that someone put up the royal line of succession, and it showed, Prince William and his siblings and children. And his comment was, and we were worried about Fulham squad depth. It was very funny.
It is quite funny, Sam.
In my entertaining category, I'm going with Fulham Random because Fulham Random is
mute button for Sam again.
I know you're not getting a look in, darling, but just sit quietly in your cot. Fulham Random, astonishing statistics this guy drags up. He's the biggest nerd, and I say that in the most loving way. It's so good. If anyone hasn't discovered Fulham Random, it's incredible stuff that he drags up. And then my last category of my 2-hour segment is what I call proper Fulham geezers. I'm going to name Tom Rogers, Fulham Marto, Black, White and Fred, MJG, Fulham in Japan, and I'm going to put Rachel Stevens in this group as well, because Rachel is, I think she's the director or certainly on the board of the Fulham Lilies, very passionate about the women's football. And these people are just ordinary folk, love their club and are out there commenting and just really putting their heart on their sleeves. about how they feel about the club and what's happening and their views on what's happening. And I think they just provide an incredible amount of entertainment and information for us all. And that is all.
I love you, Father. God forbid you ever write an autobiography. You'd have to get James Cameron to like direct it because it'd take like 4 hours. It'd basically be Avatar, wouldn't it? Love you. Look,
listen to you keeping it nice and concise there, Sammy.
I will.
Look,
yeah.
I will say that it's a great list, and I actually agree with all of them. I think I put forward a couple there, and the biggest thing and the reason we did this list is purely to shout out the people in the community who offer so much, and I hope we as a podcast are able to do something similar, maybe not to the same level that these people are able to do it at, but we try and put out insightful stuff. We try and put our finger on the pulse of how everything's going in the Fulham world, and these people are important people because no one, I mean, I was about to say no one does it as a job. Peter Rutzler actually does do it as a job. Apart from that, everyone else takes their time out to just do this because they love Fulham and they love the club. I look at Cottage Tactico and the amount of time he must spend fully analysing everything. I know Fulham Random, he's a great bloke, and he's had a few little struggles, but the fact is every single day he's posting birthdays of obscure Fulham players and putting out stats from the 40s and 50s.
He's amazing.
And he's done that from books as well. It's not pulling stuff off Wikipedia or asking ChatGPT to put stats together. He's sitting there with his head in these books and going to libraries and finding the information. These guys are the backbone of Fulham and the backbone of why we love Fulham and why we follow the club, because they're people who are passionate about following Fulham and putting out really good content for Fulham as well. So my hat goes off to all of these people, and we'll give them a proper shout out on socials as well, because this group of 20 people and many, many more on top of these who we didn't get to mention, but they're important people for the community, and I really do appreciate everything that they do for the Fulham community.
Yeah,
Sammy, you obviously want to add something. Yeah.
Well, I was actually going to say that I largely hate Twitter. I largely hate Twitter quite a lot. I don't like the environment on there largely, but this podcast would not. This genuinely would. It would be very, very hard to do this without these people providing this content for us. I mean, I know that we have sweeped Twitter quite a lot to scope out things, and it has been endlessly helpful. And also as well, some of the support that we've actually gotten from some of these guys has been so generous and so genuinely it's been so lovely to actually get the support from some of these people, because I believe like White Noise actually shouted this out in very, very early days, and I know Black, White and Fred has been pushing our stuff, and genuinely they've actually helped us so much. So it's just a genuine thank you.
And on your point there, Sammy, you say you don't like Twitter that much and you think it's a horrible place, but I think what we do by shouting out people like this is you are able to curate your Twitter feed, and if you really want to, chuck these 20 people into a list on Twitter and just follow what they say, and you have a really good experience on Twitter. Because they put out really good content. There's no, it's a lot of positivity as well. The negativity is there when I think it's needed, but all of these people put out really good content and really well considered content, and not just running their mouth off at players. It's all well thought out, and I think that it's a really good point you make, that Twitter can sometimes be a really toxic place. So to have these kind of people in our community putting out positive and interesting and well thought out content is so important, and again, really appreciate all the work that they do. Let's move on to the next, and it's the return of Jack's top tip. Something we put in the back pocket because we got, well, no, just ethically because we thought maybe we should, but we're bringing it back for the 100th episode, and I've got one for the Villa game this weekend. It's a juicy multi-bet. As I said before when we previewed the Villa game, I genuinely think there's a chance for us to get something here, and I really think Rodrigo Muniz is just looking in the form of his life at the moment. who would bet against him to score his 4th goal in 3 games and Fulham to draw this one 1-1? I can't see us keeping a clean sheet against what is an attacking threat from Villa with blokes like Watkins, Diaby, even McGinn, who scored against us last time and constantly makes a hassle of himself. I genuinely think there's a chance of a draw here, though. $31 for 1-1 and Rodrigo Muniz to score at any time in the game. You know,
It's pretty good
$10
odds.
bet, or you know, even a $2 bet, and you're actually coming away with a little bit of money in your pocket. So I'll be chucking a cheeky little bet on that one, I think, going into this weekend. Any thoughts on that one, guys? I'm hoping I picked something with half decent odds. I was looking at a few things that were paying, 4-1, and I just thought that's not a top tip. Come on, grow up.
I mean, I just appreciate Jack's top tips in general. You come at it with so much passion. I don't actually know why we got rid of it. I've always loved this segment. I just think it's hilarious because you always come in so hard with such a very, very concise, thought out opinion with a lot of energy, and then it's tempered with please gamble responsibly. It's genuinely entertaining. I want this to stay.
I like the narrative that we haven't done this for a long time, and now we're doing it. And Jack's come up with a really interesting, pretty tasty same game multi, $31, and he goes, I think I might put a couple of dollars on that, which sort of suggests that since we dropped it, he hasn't been betting.
Gamble responsibly, everyone. No, I actually haven't. I need money to be able to gamble. So, but look, if you followed my top tips in the past, you would have no money in your pocket. So, it definitely means absolutely nothing. I think I've maybe got close to one so far, but 100th episode, you never know. It feels like destiny, maybe, that I finally actually get one right. And Muniz 1-1 draw against a high flying Villa. What'll really happen is Muniz will score and we'll win 2-1.
Yeah,
but. Look, there's my top tip for the game, $31, Fulham versus Villa this weekend. Enjoy it and gamble responsibly. Thanks to Bet365 for actually offering anytime goal scorers. Moving forwards, Cottage Cheese, Sammy, there's a lot of responsibility on your head here to close out our 100th episode.
We got a Cottage Cheese.
We cut this segment because you were terrible at it and you just refused to prepare. I've given you about 3 weeks' notice that we're going to have a Cottage Cheese. What have you got for us?
Barely any preparation at all, because I thought to myself, I was like, if I'm going to do this properly, I need to leave it to the very last minute. No, I know. If I'm going to do it properly, my door just swung open. If I'm going to do it properly, that required minimal preparation and ChatGPT, and then just going with what I had. So it's now your annual source of protein. Isn't that fun? I miss the drop in your faces. I miss the drop in your faces just when I'm about to start doing this. It's great.
Just put us out of our misery, please, Sammy.
Yeah. Okay. So a lot of these are actually quite they're more deeper philosophical questions that I'm posing to you. So feel free to spend more time on it if you would like to. Now, would you rather have Fulham's midfield dominated by playmakers or enforcers?
Good question.
Can I have both?
No, pick one. Pick one. What are you going to do?
Excuse me.
I'll go first while Dad has a coughing fit. I've really enjoyed the Palhinha enforcer era over the last 18 months at Fulham. But when you see blokes like Tom Cairney on his day, Willian on his day, imagine if you had that and then include Dembele and Malbronk and blokes like that in there. It's great seeing a hard tackle come in, but there's nothing like seeing those guys on their day with twinkle toes and just walking over opposition teams. I'm all about the creative playmakers for me.
I'd love to create some discourse, but I'm actually the same. Any day, it's wonderful having an enforcer, and it's been enjoyable. But I wouldn't trade it absolutely for creativity and class, because that's real entertainment. The other stuff is kind of gladiatorial in a way, and it's got its own kind of it's got its own entertainment
It's got
value
its
for
place.
sure.
Yeah.
That's the panache.
But
Yoga
yeah,
Benito.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. Would you rather have Fulham's next captain be chosen by the fans or the coaching staff?
I will back the coaching staff. Certainly, the current ones,
Hmm.
I'll back them every single time. I don't think. Yeah, I think managers have the best insight as to what a team needs, and they also have the best knowledge of. Um, I think a lot of stuff happens on the field and off the field as well, and in the change rooms that we don't even see, and we couldn't begin to understand how Tom Candy might take a young player aside, or indeed an older player who's out of line, and bring them back into line. And I think it's probably only one or two dimensional at best. The view or the lens that we have from watching these guys.
I'd love to hand it to the fans, but I just don't trust them. To be
Yep.
perfectly
No,
blunt,
I agree.
the
I agree.
amount of hatred that gets thrown at the drop of a hat sometimes is crazy. So, if you picked a little committee of trusted Fulham people, I think you'd actually come out with a good result. But I also think that result would probably reflect what the coaching staff would choose as well. And the coaching staff, they see so much behind closed doors that we just never see, and they obviously make the right picks. And I don't think Fulham have had a bad permanent captain for quite a long time now, really.
Yeah, and as long as there's sophistry, democracy will always be slightly overrated, in my opinion. Would you rather have Fulham sign a player with exceptional pace or technical ability?
Technical ability every day.
Really?
Yeah,
I mean, we
you
signed a
can.
player with exceptional pace, and he pulled his hammy straight away. I think
Ah,
technical ability is pretty much a given there. It just makes the most sense because
well,
you're basically talking Mr. Messi at that point. You can be as slow as you want if you're that good.
well, even look at Willian. I'm sure he was a yard quicker, but losing pace has really not detracted very much from his ability to influence a game and have the ball stuck to the end of his foot. Skill,
Mhm.
skill, skill any day. Creativity as well, not just skill.
Excellent. And last but not leastly, and a broader question for you.
Leastly.
Outside, yeah, let's go with that. Outside of TC, Ream, and now Reed, I guess, because all these guys are on the aging side, who, in your opinion, should be Fulham's next captain?
Rodrigo Muniz. No, obviously not. It's tough because we do have a bit of an aging squad.
Mm.
I'd actually like someone like Bassi. I don't know what he's like, outside of. I think he's most defenders have something to say and have a bit of something about them. Maybe even someone like Iwobi. He's only 27, so he's still got quite a bit of his career ahead of him. But I think a young defender, someone like Bassi, make him captain, maybe he sticks around for 10 years and we get a really solid long career out of someone like that.
Sadly, I was going to say exactly the same thing. Um, yeah, I think he'd. Yeah, I don't obviously really understand. I don't know him personally. We don't get to see very much of him, of his personality. Um, but he's young. He's very confident. He's forceful. Um, I don't know how sensible he is, but I think he could be a great captain. Um, I'd probably like to see someone like Kenny Tete as captain. Actually, how about that?
Ooh, that's a
Um,
good shout.
Yeah,
um, wouldn't
can't get in
even
the team
mind.
at the moment.
I know. I wouldn't even mind Bert Leno. Um,
Yeah,
but I don't really love goalkeepers as
Neither.
captains.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think Harry Wilson would be my man. I love Harry Wilson, but I don't think that's him. Um,
I'll put my
I,
yeah.
I tell you
I'll
what, if
put,
I, I don't does a captain have to have a long career in front of him, or is he just the best guy for the season? And if so, why not Willian?
it's good. It's actually a very good
Willian
poignant
could
question.
easily retire at the end of the season. That's
But
probably
that's
Yeah.
why.
okay. So why wouldn't he be considered for this season when he is in?
I disagree with that. I think you need consistency
Mm,
to breed long-term success. I think if you have captains changing every season, you just don't. You need a backbone to a club. It's the same as having the players there, and I think you want a captain who's been captain for a long time, and that's the joy of having Ream and Kearney both at the club for 8 years. They've been captain, I think, for maybe the last 6 years between the two of them. So we've had that consistency running all the way through, and we can sort of lean on that all the time. I think if you picked someone like Willian, he'd possibly be a good captain, but you get one season out of him, and then you got to pick your next captain, and then you pick Leno, and you maybe get 2 seasons out of him, and then your next captain. And I look at blokes like Danny Murphy, who was captain for a long period of time. Chris Coleman, captain for a long period. You know, these guys who put in long stints at the club, they're the guys who I think you want with the armband on, because it forms that backbone, and it's a leadership group you can trust and lean on.
How about some golden handcuffs and Joao Polina?
you took the words out of my mouth. I would love to have Zhao, but you know what? Outside of Zhao, maybe let's start completely fresh and maybe just pop it on the Fougerolles. Even though I'm not like I'm picturing this more in like 2 or 3 years time, where he's maybe coming to his element a little bit more and has established himself more in the club. Josh King, yeah, I haven't seen enough of Josh King.
16 years old of him. Give him the hand, lock him
That could
down
be
for a
great.
15-year career at the club.
Could be
And then he
great.
can go and play in the MLS.
Yeah, and that's your cottage cheese.
Lovely.
good,
Thank you,
Sam.
Sammy. That was probably the best cottage cheese you've ever done. So thank you for saving a decent one for our 100th episode. It's too bad we had to deal with all the dross before it. But
I do what I can.
No, much appreciated. So, guys, we can close it out there. It's surprisingly not as long as I expected us to go for today, even though Dad had his 40-minute Twitter moment. But I enjoyed every second of it, Dad. So it's good with me. We might cut that and make it into a separate side pod, I think, as well. Give the people what they really want. I think that's an ASMR one. You can put that on just as you're trying to fall asleep at night. Listen to Dad talk about the top Fulham tweeters for 20 minutes.
I think there
Perfect way
genuinely
to
is
fall
an
asleep.
audience for that. I feel like that is part of the
I've
community.
seen the comments. I don't know if you have. There are comments out there.
Oh yeah,
People
no, I
asking
believe
for
it.
more.
Yeah, I believe.
Guys, just a big thank you to everyone again who supported us over this last 100 episodes, and thank you to you guys, Dad and Sam, for the 100 episodes together. I don't think any of us have managed all 100. I think we've all missed a handful here or there. Dad, when you were up in Exmouth, Sam, just purely through time zone differences.
Yeah, tired.
I think we've well, I wonder who will actually reach 100 caps for the That's So Craven first. But I'm not doing the maths to work that out. So let's just call it evens and say we're all there. But thank you guys for doing this podcast, and it's been a really enjoyable couple of years. Stressful sometimes, but at the end of the day, we're doing something that we kind of love, talking about Fulham and catching up a couple of times a week. So it's been really enjoyable. Guys, I think we can can it there. People have heard us talk for approximately 100 hours now. Probably more than sick of us. So, Sammy, thank you for joining us tonight.
Well, they're going to get a little more. No, I think we've done a very. Do you know? I've said it a bunch of times. It's for what we're doing here. Obviously, we love our club and we love Fulham, but I genuinely believe that we're really doing this for Alfie and Miles and Lola and Henry, my nephews and nieces, and Jack's son, and my dad's grandchildren. I think this is a really lovely thing that they'll be able to look back on at some point. Alfie can literally do the intro. Jack's kid can literally do the intro. That's how many times we've done this. And no, I think this is such a lovely time capsule, and we have a really lovely community, and I can't thank everybody enough. It's fucking mental that we've done 100 of these. It's actually insane to me. But yeah, 100 more, 500 more. Yeah, long may it rain.
Lovely, Sammy. And Jad, thank you for joining us tonight.
Yep, thank you very much. I've enjoyed it. I echo everything that Sam said. It's very enjoyable to me. I talk about it anyway, whether there was a mic in front of me, obviously. But I love doing it with you guys, obviously, and it's heartwarming that people actually listen on a regular basis, and I'm very grateful that they turn up, and it's good to be part of the community, which is all of what we were talking about earlier on, with all those people producing really wonderful, great entertainment on Twitter. So yeah, thanks for having us, and talk to you next time.
Yep. Thank you, guys. So for the 100th time, and as always, come on, you whites.